We have got a very beautiful subject for discussion this evening. Many people do not know the importance of a subject like this, but I shall try to present its importance and relevance in the course of this brief lecture. Any nation needs intellectual and spiritual guidance in its march to progress. Great nations had such enlightened leaders. When you read about the French Revolution, behind that we had the age of enlightenment and great thinkers like Voltaire, Rousseau and others. England also had great thinkers and leaders who helped to make England a great empire. And the story of America we know. The founding fathers who gave a particular direction to American democracy. So far as India is concerned, we had great spiritual leaders in the past. From the beginning of the Vedic period up to our time, we had a few intellectual leaders as well, and a few outstanding political leaders like Ashoka and the great Guptas. In this modern period, we have entered into a very impressive period of our history. Something unique, but something which is full of problems. Because this country has become the center of the action and reaction of so many forces, both national as well as international. For centuries together, we have been isolated from the rest of the world. And we have declared the rest of the world as bleacher, not fit for contact. That is the story of India for the last several centuries. But the bleachers came. Whom we call bleachers, they came, conquered this country, ruled over us for hundreds of years. And then came finally the modern period. The British coming and establishing their sovereignty over India. This produced a new situation. A powerful culture from the West has come to India, influenced us a good deal. Though many people resisted that influence, even today there are many who resist it. We don't know what to do with it, but it is there. And our own nation has been in the grip of a feudal attitude and legacy for several centuries. All on a sudden, in the modern period, we have been facing this challenge. How shall we proceed in this modern period to deal with various forces acting upon our society, various forces that are coming out of the society itself? How to give a direction to all this, to make for a better India, a stronger India, and more enlightened India. That is the problem that the nation faced in the last century. We had great leaders coming in the beginning of the century. of whom very outstanding one was Raja Rammohan Roy. A universal mind, great courage of conviction, power to sacrifice everything in the cause of truth. That was Raja's greatness. He responded to this modern challenge of Western connection with a message of equality of East and West. Let us develop equality between East and West. But he came too early. India had not discovered herself at that time. We were at the end of a decadent period, socially and politically. And the foreigners who came to India at that time had no respect for this nation. So talking of equality at that time fell on deaf ears. It had no relevance. But slowly, India was getting adjusted to a new situation, and by the end of the century, India threw up two great personalities who are tremendously significant in connection with this topic, which I have posed in the beginning itself. How are we going to face the challenges of this modern period? How are we going to control and direct all these energies working upon the nation in the direction of a better India, a brighter India for all the people of India, without distinction of caste or creed, race or sex? This was a great problem that became tackled very successfully by two great personalities, Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda, who came towards the end of the century. Today, it is good for us to look at these great personalities, learn from them how to handle our problems. If only we had done this when we became free, learn the lessons from Vivekananda, how to shape India's future, we would have been by now a highly developed nation. But we didn't do it. We neglected this great work of thinking, of study, how to make for national development in a big way. That's what happened all these 40 years. And the result is a nation full of problems. Apart from corruptions and other things, there is this undevelopment of nearly 30% of the population, illiteracy, poverty, etc. We need a philosophy to guide us in these directions. We need an attitude of concern for man. These are the things that were given by Swami Vivekananda, who received the inspiration from his own teacher, Sri Ramakrishna. In fact, when we deal with Swami Vivekananda, we are dealing with the whole historical development of India and how we shall develop our own future in the modern period. Those who are thinkers, they understand this dimension of Vivekananda's personality. Very few nations get this privilege to be guided by such outstanding thinkers and leaders like Vivekananda. They have produced other great leaders as well in the modern period. But unless our people open up their minds to receive these inspirations develop new strength of character and national purpose, we shall not be able to benefit from having great leaders. Other nations may learn from them better than we do. That seems to be our fate, at least for the last 40 years. Foreigners will tell us, when you have such great leaders in your country, why don't you follow them? They tell you this. There are Americans who tell this. Why do you come here? You have got great leaders and teachers there. We don't know that. We don't recognize their worth and greatness. But now, because we are in really difficult situation, all the problems are becoming difficult to control. Now we need real thought guidance. A great nation like India, with 5,000 years history behind it, some of the periods are outstanding, most brilliant periods, which have thrown up great minds in all departments of life, including physical science. That country is facing a new situation today. And we need not an ordinary type of thinker or scholar, but a far-seeing thinker and scholar. India produced one such in Swamiji. By studying him, assimilating his message, getting inspired by his ideas, we could have easily worked out the problem of this great nation during the last 40 years. We didn't do it. What is the stature of Vivekananda from this point of view? Several people among our political leadership have spoken about the great contribution of Swamiji to the freedom of India, inspiring masses of people to fight for India's freedom. But there is one remark by Gandhiji that should make us think. When he went to Belur Math, headquarters of the mission, sometime in the 20s, they asked him to give a talk. And he said, I have not come to speak to you on satyagraha or civil disobedience. I have come to the place where that great Swami Vivekananda lived. I want to carry a bit of that inspiration for my work in the political field. Then he said, I have studied his works thoroughly. And after studying Vivekananda, my love for India became thousandfold. For Gandhiji to say this, suppose all our people in education have studied Vivekananda's works from 47 up to date. If their love for India could become even fivefold, what a tremendous transformation would have come. But it has not come. It was not done. We didn't care for all these things. We merely marched along in our own selfish, self-centered ways, forgetting the nation, forgetting the people, forgetting the weaker sections of society. That is what has happened during the last few decades. Now we must realize it. The next few decades must see that we catch up with these problems, solve them, create an atmosphere of hope and cheer in the nation. That change will come when our educated people become re-educated in the great literature of Vivekananda, a literature of strength, a literature of unity, universality. Everything is positive and nothing negative in this great literature. He loved India with a passion rare in the history of the world. He loved everyone in India, every community, every religion, and especially our weaker sections. When you read his literature, you will feel the impact of that tremendous love for the people. How many times he has wept to see the suffering of the common people of India. Which person has, at the height of his glory and name and power in America, had wept for the people of India at the time? That's what Vivekananda did. When the Parliament of Religions heard him, he became the center of our attention in that great city. Even that very night, he was in tears, thinking of the people of India. Here in America, there is too much to eat and drink and people die of overeating. My country, people die of hunger. Why should it be so? How can I become an instrument to change the situation? With that thought, he couldn't sleep at night. And early morning, the host found a pillow wet by his tears. That is the heart of Swami Vivekananda. We have completely banished that heart since independence. Our brains are fine, our hearts are poor. We can't feel for the people. When we feel for the people, we begin to serve the people, wiping their tears, making the nation better and better. That has not happened. It must happen if we are to overcome our problems and build healthy, progressive, socio-political order in our countries. That is the message Swamiji gives us, and while giving that message, he transformed himself into a type of personality which is the subject of this evening's lecture. He combined in himself the best virtues and graces of the East along with virtues and graces of Western world. Two great cultures found their beautiful harmony in Swami Vivekananda. It is an extraordinary achievement. It has never happened before. We have been in touch with the West from several thousand years ago. At least from the Alexander's time, we became forced into contact with ancient Greece. That was the West, that was very powerful at the time. And the Greeks represent the origin and development of the essentials of Western culture. When you speak of the West, remember the Greeks. All of modern Western civilization is nothing but Greek civilization with a little physical science added to it. All the rest is nothing but ancient Greece, classical Greece as they call it. We came in touch with Greece. We did have a little bit of give and take at the time, but we never produced anyone who assimilated the spirit of Greek culture to become a harmony of East and West. Then the Greeks vanished from our horizon. We continue to treat all foreigners as mlechas, and for the last more than 1,500 years, we have built a wall around us, never allowing ideas to come from outside India, often not sending our ideas outside as well, unless they come and forcibly take it from here. That is what happened to us during the last several centuries. A stagnation of human mind. It is said of the French Bourbons, that is the Louis XIV, 15, 16, they are called Bourbon rulers of France. It is said of them that the Bourbons never learned anything new, never forgot anything old, therefore revolution came. A mighty revolution came in France, full of violence, but with great ideals, liberty, equality, fraternity, that inspired much of Western culture thereafter, which has inspired our own struggle for freedom as well. Now this wonderful idea, which has inspired people all over the world, we are slowly getting here, and we have now produced a personality who becomes a blend of the best of Indian culture and the best of Western culture. Greek culture coming through modern Western nations, one of whom became dominant here, England, and we got that culture here. We can keep it as an untouchable culture. There have been people in India who said, don't touch it. But in Swamiji, you find that positive attitude of acceptance. This culture has something great to give us. We cannot treat it as nature. We have to learn the lessons even from nature. Earlier, a few thousand years ago, there have been great writers, one of whom has said, even from natures, learn wisdom. They asked us to be broad-minded, but we didn't become broad-minded. Now we have to be truly broad-minded, because we are passing through a tremendous transition in our long history. The problems of India today are more complicated, more complex than all the problems of earlier ages. We need great understanding. We need profound thinking. We need foresight and foresight to handle the situation. Merely going along, taking all the good things the West can give, of gadgets and other things, and we think we are all right. That kind of cozy attitude you find plenty in India, even among educated people. That is our misfortune. The capacity to think, the capacity to understand the forces acting upon the nation, capacity to direct these forces in the right direction. That capacity cannot come without tremendous study and thinking. This is what we get today by studying the literature of Swami Vivekananda. In him, the East and West became harmoniously blended. As a personality, he is unique thereby. In the West, he was quite at home. People also found him quite like themselves. In this country, he became quite at home. He also found himself quite at home in our ancient culture. How he became such a personality is a great subject of study. As a student, I have been very devoted to biography. How people become great in any sphere, from my young days up to date. This is a fascinating study for me. A sportsman, a scientist, a social worker, political leader, scientist, or a spiritual person. How they became great in their own sphere. Any little book, any big book on these subjects, if I get, I read. I want to know how great people became great. They are not thrust upon them. They achieved greatness by struggle, by hard struggle. From that point of view, I studied Vivekananda from the age of 14. And what tremendous insight, what clarity of thinking came out of that study. Even today, that study goes on. What does Swami Vivekananda mean to the India of today? When he was alive, he developed his personality in diverse directions. And among the great spiritual personalities of our nation, he is the first one who handled not only the spiritual problems of humanity, but even the economic and social problems of Indian humanity. the first time in history. Why should my people be poor? Why should there be starvation in my country? Why should even a dog die of hunger in my country? Such questions he raised for the first time in our history. There you will find a new type of personality. Our country has been very religious. Inner life has been our speciality. We have thrown up the largest number of saints, luminous personalities throughout the ages. But after some early beginnings, we began to neglect our external environment. The environment, natural and social, in which you and I live. We began to neglect it more and more and more. The result was weakening of the people of India. You can't neglect your external environment. You need a strong economy. You need an integrated society. You need a strong political state to protect your culture and your freedom. We began to neglect all these aspects of human life in succeeding centuries. Only religion, and mostly otherworldly religion, not strengthening, unifying ideas of religion. This went on for centuries together, and you have seen the result of it, as the American philosopher and historian, the late Will Durant, has said in his Story of Civilization, Volume 1, Our Oriental Heritage, with a title. It's a beautiful, fascinating volume. He says there, from about 1st century to 10th century AD, India was developing various religions, religious outlooks, increasingly neglecting her external life, and the result was she invited foreign conquests, and they came, and they were the bloodiest in all history. These are his words. By cheap mystical ideas, otherworldly ideas, thinking that is religion, we neglected our external life, and we invited conquest, and it came, and it was the bloodiest. In a few pages, he describes the sufferings of India under foreign invasions from 1000 AD onwards. Now here you can see one truth about our culture. The first time it was Swamiji who pointed out that aspect of our culture, namely, our culture is not perfect. No culture is perfect in this world. Each is a department of culture, an aspect of culture. We are specialized in certain aspects of culture. Others are specialized in other aspects of culture. The first lesson he asked us to learn is that we are not perfect. We have to learn from others. We never had that idea before. We were all knowing. We knew everything. Our country is the greatest country every time. That's what our idea. Yes, it had a greatness, but to keep up that greatness, you have to give and take. That is taught. Even in 11th century AD, we had an Arab visitor who came to India along with Mahmud of Ghazni. That was a wonderful occasion. Al-Biruni, a Sanskrit scholar, a scientist, he has studied Gita, Bhagavatam and other books also. That Al-Biruni has written a book on India, what he saw in India. One remark of his is very interesting for us. What has happened to the people of India? They have become so narrow. They think they have got all the wisdom of the world. They think all the other people are good for nothing. All the sciences only are here. This is a new attitude I find. Their ancestors were not like this. I am quoting his words, Al-Biruni's words. Their ancestors were not like this. They were prepared to learn from others, share that knowledge with others. Here they don't even share their knowledge with us. We are all natures. They will not tell us anything. You have to squeeze out something from them. Now, how true is the description of the Indian mind of that period, which became still more narrow and parochial in succeeding centuries? We somehow contracted ourselves into a particular nation without any energy, without any hope for the future. That is the story of the last several centuries. Vivekananda comes and says, all expansion is life, all contraction is death. You are contracting and contracting, and the next stage is only death. That was 18th century India. The whole culture is to die. Religion is to die. The old Indian people will die. Can it happen? It has never happened before. Why should it happen in the modern period? India's inner strength, somewhere in the inner part of the national personality, that strength is there. That threw up these gigantic personalities. Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, our Prime Minister Nehru. When I met him in Burma, 1946 or so, my house was next to his house. So I just walked across to meet him. Sheikh Abdullah was there. Indira Gandhi was there with the two children. Then Maulana Azad was there. Iftikharuddin of Lahore was there. So many distinguished people were there at the time. So I went to Prime Minister Nehru, at that time was Mr. Nehru, political leader, busy with INA trials. Can I spend some time with you? He said, okay. So I spent 40 minutes with him. I first asked him, you have dismissed Vivekananda in one sentence in your autobiography, that Swamiji preached some religious nationalism. The whole thing is over. Have I said so? He asked me very seriously. Have I said so? Yes, we have written like that. But I have changed. I got the opportunity to study all these wonderful books, both of Vivekananda, Shankaran, etc., in Ahmednagar jail. I changed my opinion. My new estimate you will get in the book which is now in the press, Discovery of India, that book. After a few minutes talk, I took leave, joined with them for their tea and all that. Then I came away to Karachi. I was in Karachi at the time. When I took this book, when it came published, Discovery of India, I found what he said true. 5 pages devoted to Ramakrishna Vivekananda. Extraordinary words he has used there. One sentence on Swamiji. He says, rooted in the past, with full of pride in India's heritage, Vivekananda was yet modern in his approach to life's problems. He was a kind of bridge between the past of India and her present. That's a beautiful estimate from Prime Minister Nehru. Similar statements you will find about Shankaracharya by him. Wonderful remarks about Shankara's greatness, great vision, etc. Now, this description of Swamiji, it is good for us to understand and ask, what does it mean to me? Every one of us should be a bridge between the past of India and the present, not merely Vivekananda. Jawaharlalji discovered India late in life. We should discover it from the very beginning as a student. Then something great will happen from millions of such people. Therefore, this idea of harmonizing the culture of the East and the culture of the West in a single personality became achieved through Vivekananda. When I read his biography, I could detect those formative influences that made him such a wonderful harmony of East and West. As a student, he was very devoted to studying about history and our culture. Then he studies Western science and Western history, world history, assimilating all this knowledge. He had become quite modern. He has lost much faith in our ancient tradition. Almost like an agnostic he had become. Then he goes, the second influence that on him, Sri Ramakrishna. The relationship between Vivekananda and Ramakrishna is something very, very impressive. There itself you can see East and West meeting together. As a young student, Narendra was a modern Western person. His attitude was mostly modern and Western, though he loved India very much. But if he had been in that way, he would have transformed India into another Western nation. But something takes him to Ramakrishna. There he gets the best of Indian tradition, the purest, the most broad and universal dimension of Indian tradition. And for 5 years, he sits at the feet of Ramakrishna. This brilliant mind of Narendra, sitting at the feet of one who never had any modern education. And yet, he has plunged deep into our experience, studied the very spirit of India, became incarnate as the very spirit of India. Ramakrishna is presented by Ramakrishna in a wonderful sentence. He says, Ramakrishna is the consummation of the 2000 years spiritual life of 300 million people. That is Ramakrishna's remark about Ramakrishna's personality. Sitting at the feet of Ramakrishna, this Narendra expanded. He could understand the spirit of Indian culture, could assimilate the spirit as well. So West and East met together. And when he was the disciple of Ramakrishna, he was exactly a Western mind, critical, questioning all the time, never accepting anything, even criticizing Ramakrishna's own spiritual experiences, and strangely, Ramakrishna encouraging all this. Have you imagined like this before? A guru encouraging the disciple to put questions, even to poo-poo his own spiritual experience. Ramakrishna smilingly said, Naren, here you can do all this. If you had done it to any other guru, he would have shown you the door. Here you have done well. Swamiji was encouraged in this pursuit. Be Western, be Occidental, with a spirit of critical inquiry. We need it. If there is anything worthwhile in our philosophy and culture, it will stand critical inquiry. Ramakrishna had no fear, because he spoke from experience. And so, the meeting of these two great minds in Dakshineshwar is a tremendous event. In our ancient Upanishads, there are references to this kind of encounter, critical inquiry. Ramakrishna had no fear, because he spoke from experience. And so, the meeting of these two great minds in Dakshineshwar is a tremendous event. In our ancient Upanishads, there are references to this kind of encounters between two great minds. Ascharyo Vakta, Kushalo Silabtha, Ascharyo Jnata, Kushala Anichishta. Wonderful the teacher, equally competent the disciple. When they meet together, something great will happen. That's a language. Upanishads have said it. That actually happened in Dakshineshwar. A wonderful speaker, a wonderful listener. And what was the result? That Narendra comes out as Vivekananda. Ramakrishna gives his best to Narendra. There you find the greatest assimilation of two cultural streams, modern Western or ancient Indian. Ramakrishna himself was an old-fashioned person, but his universal dimension had a place for every type of human experience. In fact, Ramakrishna refers to him in that life of Ramakrishna, his external life was set in a very limited frame, far away from the currents and cross-currents of the contemporary world. But his inner life embraced the whole multiplicity of men and gods. These are his words. All humanity was comprehended by Ramakrishna in his spiritual realizations. And that Ramakrishna gave that very impulse to Narendra. And he emerges as Vivekananda, a wonderful new personality. And yet, Vivekananda's formation of personality was not over yet. This is wonderful, no doubt. But something more was needed. That something more is of great significance to all of us in India today. Swamiji's completing his education through another experience. After Ramakrishna passed away, Vivekananda began to think about it. What is my mission in life? Ramakrishna has given me a mission. I want to know what it is. I must discover it for myself. He had become a master of modern thought. He had mastered Indian thought. He had seen the best of India in his master, and yet his education was not complete. That completion came through the next phase of his life, which is the most fascinating for all students of India today. He plunged into the continent of India, walking by foot this length and breadth of the nation, living with the people, untouchables, tribals, Christians, Muslims, rich, zamindars, or princes, intellectuals, living people. That period is called the Parivrajaka life of Vivekananda. This particular course represents that Parivrajaka life. Swamiji wandering over the whole of India with a staff in hand, no money in the pocket, nothing, living on the paper. And then came the great work of Vivekananda. He had educated himself. He had become, as he said later on, what you see in me, a condensed India you see in me, he said. You will know it later. A condensed India he himself was. And now a condensed East-West cultural personality, all in one. Then came the tremendous bursting of a bombshell out of him at the Chicago Parliament. No better description than bursting of the Vedantic bombshells in the most advanced country of the West. The impact on America was tremendous at that time. And so, this wonderful personality first goes to the West, establishes his credentials in that powerful Western world, from an India which was deep in slavery at the time, without any economic or political strength, and then after 4 years of brilliant work, he returns to this country. Even during the 4 years, India was constantly in his mind. What shall I do for my people? How to break this kind of laziness of mind, this heartlessness, unconcern of our people? How to create a new impulse for the liberation of human development in India? All these great feelings rising in his heart, he found his expression in a series of lectures he wrote from America to India. Those are called the lectures of Vivekananda. Extraordinary literature. As epistle writing is a great art, Vivekananda is supreme as letter writer. Letters are full of energy. When you read it, you feel the impact of these letters. That is one. He writes to people. Think of the common people. One letter written from Japan. Come and see this country. How progressive are the people here. And you are all absolutely narrow-minded. With a 30 rupees clerkship, you think you have achieved heaven. You don't know the human life. Then he writes there, kick out the priests who are against progress. They will never mend. We want 100,000 young men and women who will go around the country preaching the gospel of salvation for the people. This kind of letters coming in a barrage from the west to India, various workers in Calcutta as well as Madras and all that. They constitute one of the most formative forces in the making of modern India, the letters of Vivekananda. But that is just one. When he comes to India, he went away unknown. Only half a dozen people knew that he was going. But when he returned, it became a tremendous event in India's modern history. Landing on the soil of India at Ramnath near Rameshwaram, the whole country rose up to welcome him. Princes drew his carriage, throwing the horses away. Students drew his carriage in Madras and Calcutta. He became a tremendous figure of hope for the nation. And what did he do at that time? He took opportunity to convey his profound message of nation building and man making. That is the theme of those lectures he delivered from Colombo in Sri Lanka to Almora in the Himalayas. Lectures from Colombo to Almora. What wonderful titles of those lectures. What marvelous English. What tremendous energy of ideas. Even a dead mutton will come to life. I often say that. Even dead mutton will come to life. That's the nature of this literature, strengthening, purifying. These two books, letters and lectures from Colombo to Almora, they created that conscience of modern India which fought for freedom of this nation. Many writers have referred this. Those who go and join anarchist parties, they were inspired by Vivekananda. Those who joined the national movement for freedom, they were inspired by Vivekananda. Even the British writers have referred to this Swamiji's influence on people because full of fire. Vivekananda is full of fire. Every word is full of fire. Ramakrishna says Swamiji had a tremendous capacity to forge arresting phrases which will pierce the hearts of people. You can see it in the literature. Now here you have an extraordinary personality who felt his oneness with the entire people of India, who felt his oneness with the people of the West as well. There he gave a message which is good for them. Here he gave a message which is good for us. And imagine he inviting the people of India to think of the millions and millions of starving people suffering for centuries together, asking them to wake up from their dream and sleep, take care of these people, build up a new nation. 5% of people at the top, the upper class, they do not constitute a nation. And they are today a decadent group. So you said that the upper classes in India are a decadent group. We have to create a new India for the common people of India. And so a famous passage in Vivekananda's works, let new India arise from the fields, factories, from hills, from mountains. Wonderful passage you will find here. That India has to rise with that foresight and foresight. Formerly, a little reform is introduced by a leader affecting 4 or 5% of the population. Swamiji said, no, I want a revolution and not a mere tidbit reform. A revolution without violence, by thinking, by character development, by having concern for the people. In his famous Madras lecture, he said, I want to put fire at the bottom of India, let it burn up into a mighty Indian nation. I don't want reform. I want growth. The nation must grow. These are wonderful ideas given in lectures which bear very, very significant titles. Madras lectures are famous. 5. First, my plan of campaign. What a wonderful idea. Before coming to Madras, he was in Ramnad. There he had begun his lecture with the awakening of India. India was asleep at that time. We were perfectly happy to be under British rule. If I get a small job under the British or a title Rao Bahadur or Khan Bahadur, we'll be very happy. That is the condition. Even then, here is a clarion call. In the very first para of that famous lecture delivered in Ramnad on 25th January 1897. Mind you, just 50 years before India became free. See the significance of that particular lecture. The longest night seems to be passing away. The sorest trouble seems to be coming to an end at last. The seeming corpse appears to be awaking. India, this motherland of ours, from her deep, long sleep. None can resist her anymore. Never is she going to sleep anymore. No outward powers can hold her back anymore. For the infinite giant is rising to her feet. See the intense farsight of the speaker. India was still dead, a slave of foreign rule. Even then he could see this Leviathan is rising. And men like Roma, they alone could understand this quality of Vivekananda's personality. Ordinary scholars cannot understand. Scholars with an artistic mind, which can penetrate the exterior, alone can understand. And so, this particular lecture in Ramnad, Roma compares to whom? To Jesus. Vivekananda was like Jesus. Lazarus, lying dead, Jesus goes to his house. His sisters tell, my brother is dead, please bring him back to life. And so Jesus stands with hand upraised and says with a tremendous force, Lazarus, come out. Lazarus comes to life. Exactly so, Vivekananda stood in the far south corner of India, looking up to the Himalayas. India, wake up. India started waking up from that time. These are the words of Ramakrishna. Without art, you can't understand this kind of greatness. It is not ordinary greatness. And so, this Madras, when he reached, the first lecture is my plan of campaign. Second, the work before us. Third, Vedanta and its application to Indian life. Fourth, the sages of India, a marvelous lecture. And finally, a wonderful lecture, the future of India. Read it today with such intense relevance to modern times. Calcutta lecture. Then Lahore, most famous lecture, Vedanta, dealing with this human problem. Untouchability, casteism and other things are coming there. Out of these lectures and those lectures, India developed a new conscience, a new urge for freedom. Thousands took to freedom, struggled, and the country became free. But Swamiji has given us how to use this freedom for the good of all. That we never understood. We never cared to understand. That is the work before us today. How can we utilize this freedom? Not to fatten oneself, but to raise the nation. What a beautiful idea. In this teaching, we find that beautiful harmony of East and West coming out of Swami Vivekananda. As a person, he was harmony. As a teacher, he was harmony. He asked us to learn from the West. Some of those sterling characters which they have, that concern for others, that public spirit, we don't have it here. We care only for ourselves. We will sweep our house, throw it on the road. We will construct a temple or a mosque on the center of the road itself. That is our attitude. I, we're the top of the nation, for which we lost our freedom again and again. In Vivekananda literature, you get the purest aspect of politics. Politics means living together. Polity is a Greek word. We all live together. There is a way to live together. how to make people happy when you live together. You need a certain attitude. That's called political attitude. We don't know anything about it. We know only about ourselves and nothing else. So in Vivekananda literature, you get the foundation of a tremendous political attitude by which mutuality, interdependence become the watchword. We can't be alone. We have to work together to achieve the national development. Therefore, through these two books, Vivekananda inspired generations of patriots. Hereafter also, generations of patriots must be influenced by this. Then they will build up India in the next 40 years. We have wasted 40 years, largely speaking. Some development has come, but the basic development has not come. That human awareness, the concern for man, that has not come. High character energy, that has not come. These are the most essential things. Therefore, in one letter, Swamiji writes, I am quoting that sentence, addressing each one of us in India, can you become an Occidental of Occidentals in your spirit of equality, freedom, energy and work, and remain Hindu to the backbone in spiritual culture and instincts? This is what you have to do, and we shall do it in the modern period. What a wonderful idea. The West has certain character traits which we need very badly. They can work hard. They can't work hard, except when it is for selfish purpose. For selfish purpose, we can work very hard. When it becomes public cause, we become absolutely lazy. Public property is nobody's property. Public issues are nobody's issues. Private is all fine. Just the opposite Western way. That's why they could banish poverty. They are all well-developed people. Collective action is there. We don't have it. We are essentially self-centered. Our religion made us self-centered, and we became contracted, as I said earlier. But here you find, in this particular sentence, can you become a Westerner of Westerners, Occidental of Occidentals, in your spirit of equality, freedom, energy, and work? These are the things he found. Wonderful day. Capacity for work, energy. 1/4 capacity we have compared to the Western people. We have to develop tremendous capacity. We spend most energy in talking. In many lectures, Swami writes, you talk, talk, talk. Stop your talking. Feel for the people. Work. This language we never heard before, except in the Gita. And so he said, energy, work, spirit of equality, freedom. Be free. You are a free person. Don't be kowtowing to others. Don't become a slave of somebody. And don't be proud and destroying other people's freedom. We have both in India. As a slave, I will bend down to anybody. And as a slave, I will destroy the self-respect of other people as well. But here are big character traits which we have to develop as a people. So he asked this question, can you become an Occidental of Occidentals in your spirit of equality, freedom, energy, and work, and remain Hindu to the backbone in spiritual culture and instincts? Then you will do wonders here. And in this modern period, we are going to do it. Swami said, great things will come in India. We shall achieve all this. And so, in that Madras lecture, he has uttered one sentence, which is significant from this point of view. What you see in India today, Vivekananda said, is the meeting of ancient Greece with the ancient Hindu on the soil of modern India. The ancient Greek spirit coming through modern Western civilization is meeting together with the ancient Hindu in this country, creating a new race of people, a new type of people, possessing all the virtues of the ancient Hindus, but possessing also those remarkable virtues of the Western people. A new type of humanity is developing in India. It will develop in course of time, and he himself is a wonderful example of the perfect harmony of East and West. two great writers, both of them artistic, have referred to Swamiji from this point of view. One is our poet Tagore. He had great regard for Swami Vivekananda, though he was much senior to Swamiji. Swamiji used to sing as a student songs composed by Tagore. You see that? But yet, when he saw Swamiji functioning, he had great hope. Here you see a wonderful new personality. Therefore he writes there. First he told Ramakrishna, if you want to understand India, study Vivekananda. In him everything is positive, nothing negative. Acceptance is the spirit of Vivekananda. We have Islam in this country. Accept what it has to give. We have Christianity in this country. Accept. So also even Marxism he has spoken, there socialism. Accept it. Assimilate it. Create a new India. The whole of Western culture is there. Accept it. Modern science and technology. Accept it. But make it your own. Digest all these energies. Then only it becomes strength to you. That's how Swamiji put it. So Tagore inspired Roma Roland to write a life of Ramakrishna and Vivekananda by that remark. About 1920-22 or so. Book came out in 29. Then Tagore says, you can get it in Rabindra Rajanavali, you will find in one of the volumes. About 10 years after Vivekananda's passing away, Tagore wrote, it was only recently we had the great Vivekananda who kept the east on his right and the west on his left, himself standing in between as the harmony of both. The language, literal language, he has used this. And he has given a message to youth in India to strengthen them. He never gave us a few do's and don'ts. He gave us an impulse which can make you rise to the highest level of self-expression. That is Tagore's tribute to Vivekananda. Roma Roland, in his life of Vivekananda, also has spoken wonderfully about both Sri Ramakrishna and Swamiji. In that life of Ramakrishna, he presents both of them as the splendid symphony of the universal soul, Ramakrishna, Vivekananda. Universal soul, east, west, everything is completely assimilated in that single personality of Ramakrishna or Vivekananda. So that is the language. The splendid symphony of the universal soul, Ramakrishna, Vivekananda. Then on Vivekananda he writes, equilibrium and synthesis are the keynote of the personality of Vivekananda. He was the harmony of all human energy. See the language. The harmony of all human energy. Human energies, they function at cross purposes in the rest of the world. Science and religion, faith and reason, east and west, all at cross purposes. They found perfect harmony in the personality of Swami Vivekananda. And about his literature, Ramakrishna writes, Vivekananda's words are great music, just like Bhagavad Gita, song of the Lord, song celestial. His words are great music. They are like Beethoven's symphonies. Beethoven was the greatest Western producer of music. That is Beethoven. And the stirring rhythms of the march of Handel choruses. Handel was another great German composer. He compares Vivekananda's words to that music. Music penetrates to your heart. Whether you like it or not, it is bound to enter into you. Vivekananda's literature has that quality. It penetrates, it transforms the receiver. Then he says, I cannot touch these utterances of Vivekananda, separated from me in books of 30 years distance, without getting a thrill through my body as an electric shock. And what shocks and transports must have been produced when, in burning words, they issued from the lips of the hero. These are the words of a foreign writer, physically foreign, mentally allied to India, akin to India, that was Ramakrishna. If that is so, Why should not this literature affect you and me? Why should not make us rise to our highest level of development, of compassion, work efficiency, and the spirit of service? Why should it not? We have not tried it. So I asked somebody, have you read Vivekananda? Yes, I have read that little book, Just Speak Vivekananda. Yes, that is only achar. That's not real thing. It is only to begin with. Read these particularly two books. And that's the advice given by Prime Minister Nehru when he spoke on Ramakrishna Vivekananda's birthday. I think Ramlila grounds or in this mission compound. Where he said, I ask young people in India to read at least the two books of Vivekananda. Lectures from Colombo to Almora and letters. They will do immense good to our young generation. That is what we have to think of from today. When I speak of Vivekananda as the harmony of East and West, I am speaking of what India is going to be tomorrow. We shall have to achieve that harmony of East and West in our own character, in our own personality. This nation will not be a repetition of past ages. It will be new, and yet continuity will be there. Spiritual continuity, but entirely new body politic. We shall not be limited in our concept of creed or caste or religion. We shall break down these barriers to neighborliness, make a human society, a human civilization, and not a particularly Indian culture, Indian civilization. That is the contribution of Swamiji and Sri Ramakrishna to India today, and he is building a bridge between India and the West to harmonize both. Tomorrow especially refers to it. Vivekananda is building a tunnel to connect East with West. I ask my fellow countrymen in France and Europe to start your work at your end of the tunnel so that we will meet together. The language he has used there. We are living in a very strange period of human history. No particular parochial national ideas can survive today. We have to think of humanity as a whole, a mankind awareness. In Swamiji's time, it was beginning. Today it is tremendous. All over the world, you find a mankind awareness. No nation can solve these problems isolated from the rest of the world. That is the world today. And he felt it. Jawaharlal quotes him with great appreciation, this international attitude of Vivekananda in his discovery of India. So today, when I speak of Vivekananda, I speak of him in the context of an India which has failed to utilize political freedom for redeeming the billions of this nation. To make them capable of doing it, I present him to the people today, and you can try for yourself what a tremendous power is there in his words. What clarity of thinking, far-sightedness. You can see in his very photo itself, whom Ramakrishna said, Naren is an extraordinary person. If the light of Saraswati shines in Keshav Chandra's sun in one point, it shines in 18 points in Narendra. That's what Ramakrishna said. An extraordinary personality. All that energy. For what purpose? To redeem humanity. So let me conclude with one of his great utterances just before he passed away. His health was failing due to intense work in both East and West. And at the age of 39, he passed away. It was just before passing away, he felt that the body is getting weak, and he said, well, I may have to die soon, but I shall not cease to work. I shall continue to work until humanity shall know it is one with God. We are infinitely the Atman. That is the end of all culture and civilization, not mere comfort or consumerist civilization that the West has plenty today. People must realize their own divine nature. That is the great aim of human development. That is the great contribution of Indian culture. And so he said this, I shall continue to work until humanity shall know it is one with God. Thank you all.